everyone, I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Jayson.
And we are father
and son.
And today we're tackling some more Power Rangers. We're doing the first 2 volumes of Go-Go Power Rangers by Ryan Parott and the wonderful, amazingly talented Dan Mora. This is the Power Ranger stuff that I think folks have been most excited for us to finally get to, and here we are. So we've already taken care of the first, 5 volumes of Mighty Morphin, and we did Pink, and there were a couple people who really wanted us to start with Go-Go because this is, in some ways, where the story actually starts, and where I think a lot of us kind of wish it had started. This feels more like that full-on reboot thing that we wanted. It isn't exactly that, but it's much more of what this whole series should have been in the first place, and of course we'll talk about that. But how's it going, Jayson? Are you excited to talk about this?
Yeah, I like this. I like this series a lot more than Mighty Morphin.
Yeah, is that just because there's more character stuff to latch on to?
Yeah.
Or is it because it's not Tommy-centric?
Both. I'm just gonna say it right now.
Yeah.
This series is mainly relationship drama.
Yeah.
And when
it's a high school soap opera. It's Smallville. It's Buffy.
Yeah. And when done right, that's my favorite kind of Power Rangers.
Oh, I thought you were going to say when done right, that's just your favorite kind of story.
Yeah, it's also my favorite Power Rangers.
Yeah?
And they do it right.
But do you think of yourself as, at your age, like a big teen drama kid? Like, is that the kind of stuff that you like to read and...
That's just...
With juvenile fiction and that kind of thing?
Yeah. I feel like, yeah. Yeah, I read a couple, teen books that are about drama like that every once in a while, and I used to watch a lot of Buffy and stuff.
Yeah, I know you always really like that.
Yeah.
So the Buffy comparison is the most obvious, also kind of interesting because, and we talked about this in another review, but Boom also publishes the Buffy reboot comics, and in some ways, this handles that kind of material even better than that does. I think there are some missteps with that series, and I fell off of it and kind of lost interest. The Buffy series is
Power Rangers too, though.
Well, yeah, but I've continued reading it.
Yeah.
Buffy, I just fell off of completely. And I've talked about this, like I said, but that series kind of tried to rush things and get to certain aspects of the show from later stuff way too quickly, and it was just kind of bombarded you with things that you were familiar with, and it seemed like it was a little bit too nostalgia driven in certain ways. But it was a full-on reboot like I wish this had been in the first place, and as we've talked about before, that's probably because of mandates from on high from Saban before it's anything. Like, I praised Buffy real hard for not being this between the raindrops thing like Power Rangers is, where it seemed like maybe Boom was learning. At this point, I don't think it was that. I think that's exactly what they wanted to do. And I think Mora manages to, or not Mora, pardon me, of course, he's the artist here, and he's brilliant, but Parott, who, by the way, has taken over this franchise completely and is writing both of the current books now.
Really?
Yeah, everything is just now an extension and a continuation of everything he did here. And so, this stuff is supremely important, and we'll talk about for what's going on in the comics now, and we'll talk about some of the reasons that is a little bit later, particularly with Matt Cook and that new character that he brings in, Kimberly's boyfriend, and a couple other things here and there. But Ryan Parott comes in and kind of more effortlessly makes it still that in continuity between the raindrops thing, but reinvents it to some degree and finds a really good balance between making it a more sophisticated thing with, like I'm always saying, more character dimension, and not full-on rebooting or retconning anything in particular, although there are some kind of tweaks to things and kind of soft retcons. And then, I'm thinking about things like Billy and the Communicator and how that works. And there's various things where he'll come in and give us really clever explanations for kind of arbitrary or silly decisions in the show and why it has to be that way through this more sophisticated context. But he puts, like you said, the relationship stuff up front, and the Power Rangers battle against Rita and the iconography and stuff more in the background. and the other series, Higgins, kind of reverses that. It kind of puts that stuff more in the forefront. And the irony with that is this stuff still handles all of the fun Power Rangers battle stuff really well.
Yeah.
And it's as epic as it's ever been.
Yeah. And I like how, the Rangers at first don't get along.
Some of them do and some of them don't.
But it's not just a big friend group and then suddenly, it's more like it was with the 70s Power Rangers in Mighty Morphin. When,
You're talking about the guys that go to the moon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they don't fully know each other at all.
Right.
These at least have known each other for a couple weeks.
Yeah. Well, and the difference there is Zordon was even more pressured and had even less time to put that team together.
Yeah.
So I gotta find some people I guess I'll go for some astronauts. I guess they're not all astronauts.
No.
But you're absolutely right, and that's a really good point. That it always seemed silly to me that you have this convenient group of 5 kids that are overachievers and are all the best of friends and get along perfectly and care about the environment and care about each other and always put other people first, and they already have all of them the self-sacrifice thing down.
Yeah.
How lucky was it, how insanely convenient was it that group of kids happens to exist in this little town in California that's getting attacked on a weekly basis by Rita Repulsa. And this, again, it can't full-on reinvent it. Because if we could just start over, I imagine you wouldn't do it exactly like that. I would think, I've said this before too, I would think that you would want to do more of the Planeteers thing, like with Captain Planet, where you'd pull kids from various parts of the world, like whoever was most qualified. Mm-hmm. Kind of weird that you've got all these different kids from different places competing to get the internship in this for Promethea, but Zordon doesn't do it that way. He just finds a bunch of kids that know each other already in one area, and we're really lucky they all happen to be qualified. This makes actually a really good argument for it, or maybe the best argument you can make for it, which is he needs a group of kids that already would do anything for each other. And maybe it is convenient, but at least there's a reason beyond, their hearts are all in the right place. The idea of a close-knit group that has already kind of come that way through some, hurdles and difficulties.
Yeah.
I don't know. It makes as much sense as it's ever going to, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think Parott does a really good job with that, and he does a lot of that in this. That's one of my favorite things about Go-Go is just all of the fun explanations, like I said, for really easy, kind of formulaic things in the show.
Yeah.
It's how come nobody moves from Angel Grove when it gets constantly attacked by giant monsters?
Yeah.
There's kind of an explanation for that here. Why do the kids all work at the youth center? There's an explanation for that here.
Why does Rita know what all our names are?
Yeah. Yeah, how do Bulk and Skull go, and it happens maybe a little bit too early, that's a little bit retconned, but how do Bulk and Skull go from bullies that nobody can stand to the kids kind of, our heroes more than just put up with them.
Yeah.
And all of that. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you give us, Jayson, just a real brief breakdown of what happens in this first trade, because we're going to tackle, of course, the first 2 trades. And let me say, this not only has kind of the spirit of a Buffy or a Smallville, but I feel like it's also organized that way, as far as, it feels like reading part of a season of television.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. And I like how it kind of feels almost more structured like a Power Rangers episode than Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And I thought that was more of a bad thing in Mighty Morphin. But
but not here.
But not here, because it feels like it's an episode of Disney Power Rangers.
Well, we talked.
Or like.
That's a great point. Yeah, like a Dino Thunder or
Yeah,
an
or an
SPD
SPD or something. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked a lot about how Higgins' book is sometimes a little bit too meandery and will just kind of seem to throw out. You don't always know why you're reading a particular adventure when you are. It's like, why are we jumping right after Green with Evil, and then I don't know. It just seems to kind of wander around a little bit.
But here it's kind of just like...
It didn't seem like the natural starting place.
Yeah.
And this does, not just because it is kind of the beginning, but I don't know, it feels, like you say, it just feels more structured like a traditional narrative, which of course I really appreciate.
I feel like in Mighty Morphin, I had to know what happened in the next issue when I finished the issue. With this, I feel like, okay, I finished the issue, and then, I mean, that was cool. Like, yeah, I get to read more, but I don't feel inclined to read more.
Well, that might be a bad thing if that's how you felt about it. I mean, like when you have a thing that is serialized like this, you want to be excited to read the next issue, but it is in more clear arcs.
Yeah.
Where, like, this first trade reads as a pretty good story all on its own.
Mm-hmm.
You know, obviously it's still going someplace, and it's setting up the next big thing that's going to happen with the, evil putty mat and all of that. But there are more clear... I guess the point I'm trying to make is there are more clear arcs for characters and situations.
Yeah.
Than Mighty Morphin has. Sometimes I found myself going, well, I guess I'm... Like, this is fun, but I guess the main reason I'm supposed to be reading this is just because I like Power Rangers, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this, I feel like, if there's anything in the world that you can just hand a person that does not already care about Power Rangers and doesn't have the nostalgia for that, because Power Rangers as an adult, speaking for myself, is so much of a nostalgia-driven thing, you kind of had to be there. I can't imagine that at 38, I would sit down and watch an episode of Power Rangers and want to keep looking at that. It's this silly, dumb kid show. But Go-Go is the thing that I most, even over some of, like, the better Power Rangers shows, like an RPM or an SPD or a Dino Thunder, I feel like a Time Force, this is the thing I would hand a person that has never looked at Power Rangers whatsoever and go, it might not read so much like it's just for children.
Yeah.
And, like, there's a tongue-in-cheek nature to it, but all the silly stuff is so in the background. Like, you might latch on to some of the character work, and stuff might resonate with you. Like, Jayson is the leader because he's a natural bully and he's pushing against that, and he has to make sure that he never bullies people again.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, where it's there's a lot of stuff that really rings true with these characters, that's born out of the very simple, superficial building blocks that we have in the first place. Yeah. And Higgins is definitely doing some of that, and I think everything that Parott does goes along really well with what Higgins is doing, but really fleshes out these characters in a way they never have been before, and I think makes kind of the definitive versions of them.
Do you think my mom would like this? Because
I've always wanted her to read it.
She doesn't like the parts that aren't fighting in Power Rangers, but she does like drama like this. Well,
sometimes the high school stuff,
usually.
it's hard to say.
Yeah.
Maybe not. And there's some a little bit typical TV stuff here that I think could potentially put her off. But yeah, it's dicey. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Anyway, I ran off with myself. So what? Just give me the really broad strokes
Of just everything.
of just what happens in this first trade.
Okay, broad. So this is set like right after the like the first episode, like 2 minutes after.
Yeah.
Where like the first scene is them finishing off Goldar from Day of the Dumpster.
And I love the way that Mora draws Goldar.
Yeah.
It's fabulous.
Okay, I'm just gonna say it right now.
I guess I didn't put that in here, but yeah.
The art in here is beautiful.
Yeah.
And I know I don't know if this is actually Mora, but I also love the covers that pretend to be movie covers.
Yeah, those are cool.
Those are cool.
Yeah, those are not him.
Yeah.
I forgot to pull my box out. Sometimes we look at the covers. I think I have mostly just the regular covers for this, but
yeah. But yeah, basically, they end up we meet the main characters and we meet Matt, and then we go to the moon, without Zordon asking. When is that? Yeah, basically right there, and I don't know if it's it might be breaking a rule where they're not supposed to be attacking.
Yeah, that's a question I have throughout this, is if the Rangers are pushing the boundaries too much. I mean, if I'm trying to write Power Rangers in a more sophisticated way, I think it would be really difficult not to accidentally do this. Where you'd constantly be pushing up against the line of the three tenets of being a Power Ranger, the rules of being a Ranger, because it's almost too extreme sometimes. And I've talked about this already quite a bit, but we're going to get into a lot more of it as we go along with some of Go-Go, but especially Higgins, with the idea that Zordon might be a little bit too extreme in his philosophy of reacting to villains and never taking the offensive. And so he has this weird line in this where he says, if you break, the rules of the Power Ranger were invented eons ago, and even before him. I always got the sense that the rules came from Zordon. This suggests that they don't. I don't love that. I always want everything to come from Zordon, or at least more of it too. I get Morphin Masters and the power coins were created by Ninjor and all of that, but they're called Zords because he's Zordon. I want more of it to come from Zordon. You know what I mean? It seems to all be about a philosophy that he developed. I've always seen Zordon as kind of a philosopher. But anyway, so he has this weird line where he says the rules of being a Power Ranger were created eons ago, and there's nothing I can do about it. It's almost like it's connected to the morphing grid. If you break them, you will lose your powers, and you'll stop being Power Rangers, and that will put your world in jeopardy. And the Rangers decide to go to the moon and go on the offensive, and it's a rescue operation, so maybe it's close enough and doesn't full-on break the rules, but I questioned it because of the attitude particularly that Zach has about it, where he's like, well, we have to stop just waiting around for Rita to do things, and it's played as really impulsive.
Yeah.
When they rush off to the moon, and it doesn't seem to be just about rescuing the astronauts, which I think is hilarious, by the way. We have these astronauts in the first episode. We never know what happens to them, and both of these books keep doing things with them. I think it's really funny.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is they accidentally out themselves, and Rita finds out all 5 of their first names.
Yeah.
She knows all of them.
Because they always, call each other their names. Just in the series.
And I guess that's the thing they do in the show, too.
Yeah, it's
so
the thing they do in the show.
So Parott is stuck with stupid things they're doing.
Yeah.
How do I explain that? I mean, he's being really creative about it. So anyway, so those 2 rules I question. I think because with that, it's, well, you're not supposed to let anybody know who you really are. That you have a secret identity, right?
Yeah.
And they dumbly, accidentally let Rita know what their real names are. So 2 of the 3, I don't know that there's a lot of using powers for personal gain yet.
Yeah. Because they sit on the Zords, but that's not really.
I don't know. That's exactly personal gain. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so basically at the moon, Jayson goes by himself, and goes on his own.
Yeah.
Instead of the others are working as a team, and he's just on his own. And so it's kind of
so that creates some friction.
And it's kind of cool whenever, like, when he finally comes back and they have that big panel with the Zords, because just with the context is pretty cool, because they finally have him back, and then...
Yeah. I didn't pull that one down, but yes.
I think I saw it earlier.
And then Rita has this really convoluted plot where, because Rita always has super convoluted plots, again, because we have to stay in continuity, Parott is kind of stuck with this villain that doesn't have the most logical, plan-making skills.
Yeah.
So she decides to make a smart putty. And I love that he's playing with smart putties, because the show does this too, where he sends down the smart putty who is transformed into this beautiful girl who goes around just asking people where the Power Rangers are.
Yeah,
and
which is very Psycho Rangers.
That's true, absolutely. But like I said, I love how he draws Goldar. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Rita's like, well, we can't, because... Goldar and Finster are like, well, why don't we just send down everything we can send down? That was always my question. Was like, you've got what seems to be unlimited resources. Just send everything.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, they'll defeat them. I already know the formula of the show. Like, I'm gonna lose, which kind of begs the question as to why she just keeps doing it later. But she's like, I need to mess with their confidence. There's a lot of that in the show.
Yeah.
And I need to turn them against their master. I don't totally understand, by the way, what even when we get to the matte version of the Super Putty, or the Smart Putty, I don't totally understand what all of that was supposed to have to do with turning them against Zordon. You know what I'm talking about? Because she has that whole speech about... She has this analogy that she gives to Goldar, who's all dense and doesn't get it on this page. It's hilarious. And she says, when I was a kid, I wanted a dragon. And my brother had a dragon. And I wasn't allowed to have one. So I made the dragon, like, turn on my family, and then they had to kill the dragon. So, like, if he couldn't have a dragon, or if I couldn't have a dragon, he wasn't going to have one either. And then, so the analogy was supposed to be... you turn the pet against the owner, and I assume that that's supposed to be like turn the Power Rangers against Zordon, but I don't totally understand how that was doing that. Like, unless the idea was it was just turning the rest of them against Jayson, but it's not exactly that either. So yeah, her plot in this is very convoluted.
Yeah, it doesn't really make much sense. And then, so, basically, then you have this stupid thing with, I mean, it's not very stupid, it's kind of cool where, like, it's the Spider-Man 2 thing, where he can't go to things because, he has responsibilities.
Sure.
And there's a lot of that in, like, issue 2 and 3, where,
Who's
like,
he?
Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And then, like, the Power
But
Rangers.
you mean with just all the Power Rangers in this, I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's very early Marvel. It's very Stan Lee Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, that's a typical thing that we can't get away from with superhero stuff, but is certainly valid if you handle it in a believable enough way. It's just sometimes it's real contrived in things.
Yeah.
I don't think it does too much here. The idea is the Rangers are all way too... stuff that you just want them to deal with in the show that they never do. Mm-hmm. Where they're all way too, they have too many responsibilities. And they're overextended, is what I was trying to say. And you wonder how in the world they have time to do anything, and they don't. And they're, like, totally burnt out at the beginning. They've gone on one mission, and they're just completely burnt out. Yeah. And I like that a lot. It is a little bit silly that they start to get over that a little bit more when they take on more responsibility, where it's like, well, now we're all going to start working at the juice bar so that we can kind of train more in public, which I think is a really creative explanation for that.
Yeah.
Where it's like, we need an alibi So we'll train in front of everybody, and no one will know we're Power Rangers, which I think is kind of hilarious. Because it's like, well, there's these 5 kids, and they're always training at the youth center. Yeah. Maybe they're the Power Rangers, and one wears yellow, and one wears pink.
And I wasn't, and I didn't put this in my notes, but I was thinking this when I was watching, or when I was reading this.
Yeah.
Why did Kimberly and Trini dye their hair pink and yellow?
Do they really?
Yeah.
That's hilarious. That's actually really funny.
Yeah, it's hilarious. I'm like, well, now people are gonna think even more because everyone is just wearing the separate colors, and now because you're wearing, now that you have yellow in your hair, now you have to wear yellow all the time.
That's really
not
funny.
even anything else.
Yep.
So yeah. In Alien Rangers, do the kids wear their colors still?
I don't remember. I think they do.
That's so dumb.
That's a good question. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's fine though, because at that point you have like a time travel thing, and nobody knows that, like, the Ranger colors are different. They wouldn't even guess them, and they're children, so it's fine. Yeah. At that point, they would just be wearing their colors, so they still felt like Power Rangers.
Oh, I just stopped on this page of Trini crying about her mom's birthday.
Oh yeah, that panel's really funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, like with that, like with a lot of early Stan Lee Spider-Man, it's a lot of regular personal problems that everybody has. So like, I've forgotten my mom's birthday. My parents don't want me to leave the house because there's giant monsters attacking, but I'm the one that has to fight the giant monsters. Mm-hmm. So real classic power responsibility stuff, and asking that age-old question, is it more dangerous for your loved ones to know that you're a superhero or to not know you're a superhero? Mm-hmm. Which is an unanswerable question. Both things are very dangerous. If the family knows, then someone can torture them for information, and I guess they might try to do that regardless. That was always my question with that whole thing. When it's like, it's more dangerous for you to know. It's like, but a villain is going to just assume that you might know that.
Yeah.
What are you smirking about?
Nothing. Just stuff and pages and stuff.
Well, anyway, so let's keep going.
Oh yeah, and then there's that big monster. With like everyone stuck in the building.
Yeah.
And like most of the Power Rangers just like can't get out, and they're like stuck. Yeah.
And they have to fight the monster with 4 Zords, waiting for Jayson to show up before they can do the Megazord.
Yeah.
And that bit's great. And you finally get some humanity for Bulk in that whole thing. Somehow Parott made Kaplan cool.
Yeah.
Wouldn't think that would be possible.
Yeah.
But he did. That whole thing is great. When he tells Jayson that he can't lay hands on students and that he's not the police, like that's a great scene.
Mm-hmm.
Rainbow Nightmare Nightmare says where they might want you to stop being a hero. Yeah, there's that too.
Yeah.
But usually it's mostly about the danger of what would happen to your spouse or your mom or whoever if they knew. And sometimes it seems almost more dangerous if they don't know.
Yeah.
And that argument is here, where Zach's like, I'm not sure we shouldn't just, I think it's Zach, I'm not sure we shouldn't just tell our parents. And Zordon doesn't have a thoughtful answer to that. He just says, well, it's against the rules, and if you do that, you'll lose your powers, so don't do that.
Yeah. So now we're on to the second, oh yeah, and also, Billy and Skull being childhood friends.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, that's kind of, okay, Billy's my favorite character. He's great.
Which is funny, because early on you didn't really care for him in the other series.
But they're different writers.
Yeah. So there's a concerted effort from Parott in this to make sure that the antagonistic characters always come from a place, at least the human antagonistic characters, right? Like you've got your good versus evil. Rita is horrible. She's got arguably more dimension to her than she did in the show, but more in just she's like a master manipulator, or at least she's supposed to be. And I mean, she's still as mustache twirly, right? We don't humanize Rita exactly. I think there's places where we kind of try to, especially after this, and we'll get there. But anyway, more or less, she's just the big grand evil, kind of, egocentric fascist dictator type. And then you have your occasional human antagonists who come from really, especially because they're usually children, right? So, or teenagers. So they come from insecure places where they're still trying to find themselves, just like the Rangers are. And this plays very much like a lot of teenage superhero stuff as a metaphor for puberty and for your intermediate high school years, where you're trying to figure out just who you are and what your place in the world is, particularly with Billy, but also with everybody. And so you get somebody like Skull, who isn't just a bully because he can be, and because he's just running around with Bulk and that's what Bulk's doing. Like, it comes from a place where he is worried that he's not smart enough, in the same way that Billy is worried that he's not heroic enough, right? Mm-hmm. And so he has this like insecurity, or this kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? He has that complex. And of course you're more on Billy's side, and then eventually we get to a place where he explains it to Billy. And it's that kind of CW walk away angry thing, but like it works okay in the scene, where he's like, the problem wasn't that you were smarter than me, it was that you thought you were. And I'm not totally sure whose side sometimes with things like that the book is on, but I do appreciate that he has a perspective, and that even though you can't condone what he's doing and it's wrong and it's played as wrong, and he's going to learn from it to some degree, it isn't it's not one note. Like, he does have a reason for being there, for being that way.
Yeah. So basically, Rita kidnaps Matt.
Yep.
And then she uses the girl that was a putty to transform into Matt, and then she pretends to be Matt, and I'm not really sure about that whole thing, where it's like, because they kind of do that a lot in Power Rangers, where it's like someone's boyfriend gets kidnapped by Rita.
Yeah.
That's like 3 times a season.
Well, that's a thing I wanted to talk about with. Well, so when you say you're not sure about it, is it just it happens too much, and so you don't like that we're going to that again, or because again, I think some of the mission statement of this is, let's make an actual story out of some of these formulaic stuff we do all the time.
Yeah. So.
And it is a big MO for her. What I think is kind of sad about it, and maybe a missed opportunity, is that the putty becomes pretty sympathetic. Like,
yeah.
It's almost an AI situation of the programmed automaton that grows beyond the sum of its parts and wants to be human, and like discovers his soul, like develops a soul.
It's a mix of 2 Power Rangers episodes.
Okay.
It's a mix of the episode where Billy gets a girlfriend and then she gets kidnapped by Rita, and it's also.
Is it the Madame Woe episode?
I think.
Yeah.
And it's the Power Rangers Megaforce episode where a monster gets built, and then he sympathizes with the Rangers, and he becomes like a good guy monster. He's like
and
a robot thing.
There's a space episode that does that too with that bee creature, with that bee monster.
Oh gosh, no, not the bee.
I didn't
monster.
say it was good.
I forgot about that.
But we do that occasionally. No, that's a really good call. But I feel like what happens to him is really tragic, and then it's not talked about.
Mhm.
Where he tries to tell Kimberly ultimately that he's a putty. And it's crazy how much pathos is behind. There's this putty that is trying to infiltrate the Rangers, but ends up being, like I said, sympathetic. And at the end of the day, all that happens is Rita takes it over and, like, literally possesses it, and then makes it grow and makes it transform into a Megazord, and it's an awesome fight, and it's epic, and it's wonderful, and it's one of the coolest things that happens in this book.
And it has my favorite quote.
But, which we'll get to when we get to your favorite stuff. But, the problem with it is there's no aftermath. There's no discussion of, I don't think, like, when they go to the juice bar later, they're not like, oh man, it's really sad what happened to that putty that we thought was Matt. Like, it was just doing what it was told and what it was programmed to do. And at the end of the day, besides the fact that it was built to do what it does, it's not that far away from Tommy, where, like, it's just this controlled creature that is being used by Rita. Like, what happens is kind of not its fault.
Yeah.
And it tries to redeem itself. It tries to go against her. It's like, I'm not going to kill anyone. I don't want to destroy the Rangers, Rita. I like them. I don't care about that. And I'm starting to feel like this Matt guy. It's not that he actually thinks he's him, but he wishes he was. And I really cared about the putty, and I thought it was kind of a misstep on, as much as I love this book, a little bit of a misstep on Perott's part that there's no discussion about it.
Yeah.
From the Rangers, they should feel bad about that.
And I don't know if you, I don't know if this is on purpose.
Yeah.
I don't know if you caught this, but you know that scene when Rita is getting mad at the putty Matt for, like, not doing its job.
When they're in the alleyway, like
Yeah.
Evil Green Ranger?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and that read totally intentional to me.
Yeah.
Yep, totally intentional. So, did you have the question I did? Why not just, and I'm sure Perott's thinking this because of what happens with Matt years later in this series with where we're at now. Why doesn't she just give him the evil power coin?
Yeah.
Because Tommy was just mind controlled. Tommy wasn't like, we found this kid who was already bad and I can manipulate to be on my side. No, she just mind controlled him. Why doesn't she do that with Matt?
Yeah.
Why this whole putty thing?
I mean, it could be cool if she gave the putty the power coin, but I don't know.
I don't think she could. I think it would have to be a person.
Yeah.
Like, we can argue about whether or not that putty had a soul. It kind of becomes the iRobot thing. It's very Asimov, even though it's not a robot. It's kind of the Data thing. Like, we can argue about that, but I don't think it literally has a soul. So I don't think that it could get a power coin.
Mm-hmm.
You know? But anyway, I think maybe the idea is supposed to be Rita's still not sure, like, what exactly her MO is going to be with putties and monsters and stuff. So she's trying different stuff out. And so she goes, well, let's have this smart putty that hopefully I can still control. And when he goes against her, at the end of that, she goes, okay, Finster, the putties have to always be mindless and stupid from now on, and easily controlled. Mm-hmm. Which is why, which is supposed to be, again, a clever explanation for why she doesn't do this kind of thing very often.
Yeah.
And, like, after this, they're always dumb and easy to beat.
I mean, they kind of get smarter with Tangas, but they're kind of just dumb, still dumb.
And there's still episodes where we do the shape-shifting putty that infiltrates as a person. Like, that happens a couple times.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But anyway, so you could argue that she doesn't give him the coin because she's trying this thing out with smarter putties and with smarter monsters. But then the question is, if you had the evil power coin and that puts you more on par with the Rangers with power levels or whatever. Why wouldn't you lead with it?
Yeah.
And the answer, of course, is because you want to have a few episodes that develop a formula before you break it and shock everyone with, oh, there's an evil Power Ranger. Like, that's the real reason. But Pro's got to be thinking evil Green Ranger, because eventually, spoiler alert, Matt will become the Green Ranger.
Yeah.
Way down the road.
Have you seen the cover for issue 6?
I mean, yes, but what about it? I don't remember.
It's like a 60s Batman, where they're walking up the wall.
Just show me.
Of the moon.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. I never noticed that.
Yeah, and there's a Zed head.
Oh.
That's pretty great.
Zed is mentioned a little bit.
Yeah, Rita talks about and this is in trying to manipulate people, but she talks about, in Goldar specifically, but she talks about the difference between her and Zed, and that he like handpicks people to rule planets for him, where she does her dirty work herself, she says, and that he's real paranoid, and she like tries to get lieutenants that she trusts, and if she doesn't, instead of spying on them like Zed does, she just murders them.
Yeah.
Which we see happen in a flashback. I kind of wasn't totally sure. I feel like with the bad guy stuff, the book gets a little bit out of focus.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay, these spam bots have just got to stop. Where it's so much more focused on and we need to talk about more of this, but the relationship drama and stuff, that all the villain stuff kind of interrupts it and starts to get, like, sometimes it's more just typical regular Power Ranger stuff, and sometimes it feels like it's really trying to make that stuff more complex, but I'm not caring as much in this context, where it's like, I'm not sure why. I just don't know why some of these things were in this series. It's like, why does Go-Go need to give us a backstory for Squat and Babu? Yeah. And why are we allowed to give them backstories when we can't do it with Zordon yet?
Yeah, I don't get that. Yeah, that's in my notes. Why does Zordon not have a backstory yet?
Why do we have that flashback where, like we mentioned a minute ago, where Rita strikes that lieutenant with lightning because she thinks that he's going to double-cross her? I just don't know how that plays into this story.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a lot to do with anything.
And
the story is otherwise plotted really tightly. Like, I don't mind the non-linear in this with all the teenager stuff, where we'll get flashbacks from weeks or months before Arrival Day, where you see, because you need to see how each of the Rangers met each other. There's a little bit of like I just thought of this. There's a little bit of like a Friends thing going on, like the TV show, in the origins of how these people come together.
Yeah. The origin for Squat is just messed up.
Well, it's disturbing in the first place.
Yeah.
Because she's conquering this planet, and this couple of these like blue-faced aliens that look like Squat are like, well, we don't have anything we can give you. We want you to spare us, so we'll give you our child. And that's just messed up all by itself. But Jayson doesn't like the origin for his name. And
then Rita's like, well, you're a squat little thing, aren't you? And I kind of just like cringe a little bit at that. I'm like, no.
Senior Stick says, if they're on the moon, why not just jump? There's no gravity. Well, I mean, that's just a fun cover, but I think it's them sneaking around. You know, like maybe on that cover they're looking for an entryway or something. That doesn't have a lot of bearing on anything specifically that happens in the issue. But there is a fun line. This book has a lot of great banter, and the dialogue is real believable. And that's one of the best things about it, is he's just got such a good voice. It's very Spider-Man Homecoming. Like, he's got such a good voice for modern teenagers.
Yeah.
And there's a great bit where I think it's Trini maybe who says that fighting putties on the moon feels like fighting in a bouncy house. And that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Screener can't really,
like
whoever
how,
it is says it.
Yeah, I like how people act like they would act in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of like the show.
Yeah, they really feel like real people.
Yeah. I mean, at least, like, especially like how people act in Angel Grove when things happen. They're all like, instead of like in the show, no one's like after the fact like, oh, the Power Ranger saved us, yay.
Well, and Parott does kind of try to get us there, because that is the status quo in the show, so it's like, okay, how can we do it as believably as possible? Well, after 2 times the Rangers save the day, everybody's feeling more safe because the Rangers are around, and so they don't move, and Ernie doesn't have to close his juice bar, and I think it's a little too easy, but what are you going to do if you can't full-on reboot?
Yeah.
I'll get to Super Chats here in a second, Senior Sticks, thanks for those. But while we're here, can we talk about some of the parallels to events that we've already read in Higgins and stuff that's being set up? Talk about the moon business, because it's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, because the moon, the thing where, like, the mission where they go on the moon is very similar to the 70s thing with,
that we talked about last video.
What's her face?
I think. Grace Sterling.
Grace Sterling.
Yeah, the original Red Ranger.
Yeah, where she goes, where that team goes on the moon.
Yeah.
And I think they also rescue astronauts, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's basically like the same thing.
Yeah.
Because doesn't also Grace Sterling go in alone?
Yeah.
Also?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like almost
and
the same
that all
thing.
reads really intentional.
Yeah.
And also, we know that Parott is dealing directly with Grace Sterling and Promethea stuff because Promethea is the company that Billy's trying to get an internship with in this, and that's her company, that's her think tank, and they will become this organization that cleans up after Ranger battles, and it kind of plays like damage control and tries to help people that have been in the middle of Ranger fights and stuff like that, and they're trying to find ways on the sidelines to help the Rangers do what they do, which will actually turn more into like a Black Ops thing, and will become Grace Sterling as almost the anti-Zordon, who has a lot more of like an Amanda Waller sort of philosophy. Not quite that far, but she has much more of an ends justifies the means kind of mentality.
She doesn't like kill people and stuff.
Yeah, we don't see her in this.
No.
So she's curiously not at Promethea when there's another woman that interviews Billy for that internship.
Yeah.
Which he ultimately doesn't take because so much of this, again, is about the Rangers trying to, your classic superhero, trying to balance your personal life with your superhero life. And he'll decide that being a Ranger is more important. That's his big character arc. At one point, he wants Matt to become the new Blue Ranger.
Yeah. And what's funny is that's while
the putty is... Yeah,
Matt is the putty. Or the putty is Matt, and Matt is all ripped up, and yeah.
So it's really interesting that the Rangers want to go to the moon and try to rescue the astronauts. Because at first Zordon, he doesn't full-on forbid it, but he's just like, no, we don't do that here. And then they're like, no, we're going, because we're pretty sure they're up there, and they need to be rescued. And again, it's weird because Zach says, we didn't become Rangers to just sit around and wait for Rita to attack, which is actually precisely what they became Rangers to do. That's Zordon's whole philosophy. And I think it's, even though you can make the argument that because it's a rescue operation, they're not escalating a fight. You can, certainly. It's weird that Zordon is against it, and then when they decide to do it, he doesn't say anything. Yeah. And it's weirder because you'd think that he would be even more against it because of what happened with Grace Sterling. And the members of her team that died because Zordon jumped the gun and was too impulsive and picked Rangers too fast and rushed them out to the moon. Yeah. And I assume that part of the reason that initially and remember, Parott knows about all of this. He's setting up Promethea stuff. Yeah. again, I would have loved this book to be where all of this started, but some of this would not be as interesting if we started from 6 hours after Arrival Day.
Yeah.
After the first fight, because Higgins has done so much legwork now with what he's done in the future of all of this that now we're able to build to it, and it's one of the best prequels I've ever read. Like, it doesn't have prequelitis at all. Like, if you look at it as a prequel, it's setting up all that stuff brilliantly and just laying the groundwork for things that we've seen already but also will come after that, and all of it will converge into this, like, wonderful, fascinating, complex mythology. And it's really tight. Like most of it works really well.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I've argued with folks that say that, like, we should have started here and that you and I should have reviewed Go-Go first. This is the reason we're not, because because if you read it in production order, you see all the stuff that was laying the groundwork for this, and it's kind of more impressive. It's kind of more interesting to read it this direction because of that stuff, I think.
Yeah.
Even though if I was going to hand somebody that didn't care about Power Rangers comics, or give them a story, it would be this. Because it's not that you can't read this in a vacuum. You absolutely can. And there's a lot of people who didn't bother with any of the rest of Power Rangers that just like this series.
Yeah.
And that is totally valid and totally works.
Yeah.
And to be fair, it probably does read fine the other direction if you read this first and then you get to all the Prometheus stuff, because then it just looks like it. But I'm just saying that as a prequel thing, reading in a production order, it's impressive how good of a prequel it is.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's very not Star Trek or Star Wars.
I'm too fixated on the order of this, but
yeah.
But I think that's cool. But the other thing that's really neat, and again, I'm having to spoil stuff to talk about this, but with Billy's pitch of I don't think I make for a good Power Ranger, which is very in line with what Higgins did. And he continues, by the way, even though he has a good arc here, I think it works that in the Higgins stuff, he's still insecure about being a Power Ranger, but he's devoted to it. He's just not sure that he's a great superhero.
Yeah.
That's okay, but he pitches the idea for Matt to become the new Blue Ranger and for him to leave, partly because he wants to go to Promethea. And he says, and then when the dust settles and he decides to remain a Power Ranger, it's really interesting that way down the road, Matt will become a Ranger and he will work for Promethea.
Yeah.
Again, that Black Ops thing, because Grace is like, all of this is intertwined, right? With the Zordon sending her to the moon, getting people killed, that giving her kind of the opposite philosophy from Zordon's, where it's all about preventing instead of reacting, and then the guy that Billy thought should be a Power Ranger, she picks up and makes a Green Ranger when he seemed like kind of a proto-evil Green Ranger.
Mm-hmm.
Parott really knows what he's doing with all this stuff. And it's hard to say how much of it he already had in mind when he wrote this.
Yeah.
And how much of it was just him taking advantage of good ideas.
Yeah.
As he continued. But I'm really glad he's taken over the whole thing. Even though sometimes I think the stuff he's doing now is a little bit more plot-centered than relationship-centered. Like, I kind of wish that it stayed the high school drama a little bit more.
Yeah.
But we'll get to all that when we get there.
Season 3 is less high school driven, I feel like, than Season 1.
That's a good point, but it still could be more interpersonal relationship driven.
Yeah. I mean, take Power Rangers Pink, like, it's kind of, it's kind of relationship driven and stuff.
He does in some of the more recent stuff, and I haven't read yet past the Eltar War, but he does do a lot of really good interpersonal stuff in all the Zordon flashback material.
Yeah. And
that becomes very much like a General Zod Jarrell kind of relationship, which is what I always wanted it to be.
like knew that he was gonna do Zordon stuff down the road, but he just didn't do it yet.
Well, I think he always wanted to, but wasn't allowed to until Hasbro took over.
Yeah.
That's what I think happened.
Let's talk about the dance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Power Rangers Homecoming.
Okay, I like that this is a relationship drama. I don't like. Oh, that is a great cover.
Yeah. These covers are all awesome.
But I don't like that. I don't like most of the relationships.
Okay.
Like I don't like the relationship between Kimberly and Matt. And I don't like the relationship between Jayson and Trini.
Okay.
I don't know why he did that with Jayson and Trini. I don't get it. And then and I don't even like Matt as a character. He is just a main character that should have been a one episode character, because that's basically who he is. It's just a one episode character.
Okay. You think he just reads too generic?
Yeah.
You might find him more interesting as it goes along. I'll admit, I think he's kind of serviceable as a plot device more than he's a great character.
Yeah.
Like, I don't hate him or anything, and I think he gets more interesting when we do all the Prometheus stuff with him later on. But in this stuff, he's kind of more a device to say, well, what if there was a sixth wheel before Tommy? Like, what if you had this group of friends, and he was part of them, kind of, but they didn't all become Power Rangers? Isn't that kind of more realistic? That it wouldn't just be these 5 kids that all know each other, hang out with each other, nobody else, and then they become Power Rangers, and then there's nobody else around to go, you guys are acting really weird all the time and not telling me what it is, and like, who keeps calling you on a space phone, and all of that, right?
Yeah.
And so I think he's a really good idea.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that in at least these first 2 trades, that's all he's really intended to be, so it's okay. Because he gets taken out real quick, and then he's replaced with a putty.
Yeah.
For a lot of it. He's basically like Cyclops in the first X-Men movie, or Hawkeye in Avengers. He's not a character yet.
Yeah.
Cyclops will never get a chance to really be a character, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Hey,
so I see why you say you don't want that guy, because I don't know that you're supposed to. I don't know that he's really much of a character yet. I think he's charming enough that you buy why Kimberly's with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm sorry, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, hey, he's in the Sonic movies, so.
Cyclops.
Yeah.
He does have some flashes of individuality where you have that bit where he is. Well, again, I guess this just makes him kind of a typical love interest, right? He's got kind of like a Mary Jane thing, where he is upset with Kimberly because she keeps bailing on him on dates.
Yeah.
And she can't tell him that she's a Power Ranger. But he doesn't seem like unlikable or like horribly unsympathetic. Like I think any of us would probably respond that way, especially because if you take her at her word, it seems like Trini is just saying, "Hey, come help me with homework," and she's dropping everything and rushing off too often. Yeah. Where it's like, okay, at some point, I'm not buying that you're really needing to help your friend with homework.
Yeah.
Or that you've got a test you got to study for. At some point, it's starting to look like you just don't want to be around me. Like, why is that?
Yeah. I feel like it's just too relatable.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Especially because that was kind of the problem with, these kids in the show. They're supposed to be teenagers with attitude, but there's not any edge to them. And they certainly have that a little bit more here. I think I like the Jayson Trini thing.
See, Jayson just isn't likable. I don't like Jayson in this series.
Is it because you don't like the bully angle? Because I think that's awesome and fascinating.
I don't like the bully angle, and I don't like how he's like just never happy all the time.
So I think, and that's like the world on your shoulders thing, man. Like, I think that is one of those ideas and characterizations that you're likely to appreciate when you've lived some more life.
Yeah.
I think that will resonate with you more when you get into and past high school, potentially. But yeah, that is I think a brilliant angle for Jayson, because in that show he's too driven and there's no reason for it. Like he's too good of a leader. He's too like beyond his years, and this is a great explanation for it. And I love kind of putting him on the same level as Bulk, where it's like he could be Bulk. He used to be Bulk.
Yeah. He's very,
and that's the reason that Zordon picked him as the leader.
Yeah. Because he has that whole conversation with Zach.
Where Zach's like, why am I not the leader?
Yeah. I'm basically Jayson in the show.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think Zach was right to ask the question. Because he's like, here's all these times where I've had to bail out the team, and I kind of know what I'm doing. And I didn't feel like it came off arrogant. I feel it was just like, I'm good at this, and Jayson keeps disappearing.
Yeah.
Like, how come it's not me? And Zordon's explanation is really interesting.
Jayson is just Raphael.
Jayson is just Leonardo. What are you talking about? He's Leonardo. Zach is closer to Raphael, if anybody is. Although nobody's exactly that archetype, certainly, because nobody's got that kind of chip on their shoulder. Like Tommy will be the closest thing you have to a Raphael, I guess later. But you still don't have anybody that's just a flat out hothead.
That's what I feel like Jayson is in this series.
Well, could we say that he's a combination of the two? He's almost like Leonardo and Raphael if you wrap them all up in one package. Yeah. I guess I can see where you're coming from.
Because, well, I mean, imagine just he's on the moon, but instead of him going out still in his ranger suit, just put him in a trench coat, and it'll all make sense.
Let's do these super chats just real quick, man. Senior Sticks, $2 super chat. Can putties grow and be considered monsters? I mean, I would say that's what you have at the end of this.
Yeah, that's basically what you have, yeah.
That's a really cool way to do just threading the needle through the events of the actual show, where you do something real epic in the middle of a much more intimate, character-driven story. I love that kind of thing. It reminds me of, again, Buffy. You haven't gotten this far, but it reminds me of the destruction of the school at the end of season 4. It's a lot like that with the basilisk. But here, you've got a thing that you wonder why we never did in the show. 3 seasons, you never had a giant putty that fought the Megazord. Like, of course that would happen at some point. And it kind of makes sense to do it early, because she's just constantly throwing putties at them.
Yeah. You do get them in SPD.
Oh, really?
They don't really... So, basically, the whole thing in that is their putties, there are, like, 2 types of putties. Like putties and Z putties.
What are they called? I can't remember. You don't have it?
I don't have it. It's been on. I have to watch that show again.
Yeah.
Because it's my favorite Power Ranger show, but I need to watch through it again. But basically there's like the blue version, which is like the main version, I'm pretty sure, that's like more putty. And then there's like the orange version.
He was more putty than man.
Who is basically just a monster, who is like more powerful, but they all look the same. And then they can grow and turn into, basically, they just look like monsters.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I didn't know that. Senior Stick says, is Jayson a jerk? Kind of, and he's trying not to be. And that's what makes him so interesting.
Yeah.
In this. But you don't like him.
No.
But see, I think as you get older, and again, you live more life and you read more stories, and you learn more how to analyze this kind of stuff. I think you might, Jayson, find yourself with a distinction between I like a character, as in I would want to go like have a soda with him, and I like reading about this character. Like, this character is interesting, even if I wouldn't like want to hang out with them.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a distinction there.
Mm-hmm. There might be.
What do you think? So, talking about the dance stuff, how do you feel about the way the whole thing with like Bulk and his date is handled?
I don't know. I think it's kind of cool that, like, you know, they're trying so hard to like get a date because he's trying to become like king or whatever.
Yeah.
And
yeah, he's always self-aggrandizing. He always wants to be the popular kid and in front of everything.
Yeah.
But at the end of this, like I like the evolution of that, where Bulk and Skull get these dates that begrudgingly agree to go with them but don't really want to, and then Bulk's date comes to like him more through the thing, and like at first she's like, I'll dance with you one time, and then let's negotiate a second dance, all of that. I like how deadpan she is. I like how too cool for school she is.
Yeah.
All of that's great. And then this feels like a Smallville episode. There actually is kind of a Smallville episode about this, with Clark running for class president, where there's a girl who has the power to control bees, Jayson, who is running for class president, and Clark decides to run, and she tries to force him to stop running. It's the same thing that happens here, except this girl doesn't control bees. She just tries to do the Carrie thing, where she's going to drop a lot of blood on Bulk's date's head if Bulk is crowned Homecoming King. So don't let that crown go on your head, or I will embarrass your date. And so he kind of falls on his sword and does the self-sacrifice thing, which is the first kind of glimpse that he might have heroic bones. And once again, though, it has the thing that the Billy and Skull thing has, where I don't 100% sure know whose side the book is on. Like, I appreciate that there's that each character has a motivation, and that it's maybe ambiguous so that I get to choose to pick who's right, but it's also a little confused, where with Billy and Skull, it seems like for 95% of the time it's on Billy's side, where we get why Skull became a bully, and it's all about peer pressure, and he's going after his old childhood friend because he's a nerd, and he's not cool. But then you get that one moment where he kind of throws shade at Billy, and you go, well, now I'm not sure who I'm supposed to root for. And you have the same thing with this, where, but more so. This is more of a problem to me, where Bulk goes, or where Bulk decides to kind of like save his would-be girlfriend from embarrassment. And then she turns it around on him at the end and says, what, you don't think I can handle a little bit of blood on me just because I'm a girl? And then walks off. And I'm like, I get her perspective, but I don't know if the book is saying that Bulk should have handled that differently or not. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm not 100% sure if the book is saying that Billy is really arrogant in how smart he is, because nothing else except for that scene suggests it.
Yeah.
So those two things gave me pause. But overall, I like the way that Bulk is, and Skull both, but especially Bulk, is growing as a person. Skull will even more, and I don't know if you know about this, but as we move along, we are going to play around with the whole Kimberly and Skull thing that the show dances around slightly.
I don't like...
They will nearly full-on date in this. I don't remember if they actually do, but they get really close to it.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, I don't like the,
Yeah.
What was I gonna say? So, I don't like the mix...
I don't know.
I don't like the mix between, like, with Bulk and Skull, with drama and, like, funny. I don't like, I feel like one panel, it's very dramatic, and then the next panel, they're, like, trying to be funny, and it's just, like...
I think it works because so much of this is about, and high school drama, or high school stories generally are about this, is about the awkwardness of teenage years, where, again, you're trying to find yourself, you're trying to invent yourself. All of that works fine to me, I think, but...
Yeah.
I also don't think that they're really played much as comic relief in this. Like, there are places where they'll act goofy because that's their characters, but I don't think they're ever... The book is hardly ever trying to make us laugh with Bulk and Skull.
Yeah.
Which is probably for the best, because so much of that in the show was, like, improv comedy and was slapstick, which is not going to translate in panels very well.
No.
So they're played as goofsters and, you know, kind of losers and stuff that will get better about that. I also think that, just like with the show, eventually they probably should have gotten to be Rangers, like actual Rangers.
Yeah.
Because even more of a case is made for it in this book.
So I do know that they do play with a little bit of, you know, Bulk and Skull are having trouble with class.
Yeah.
But I think they should have done more with that, where it's like, they're kind of procrastinating too much and, don't get good grades and don't study enough and stuff.
So let's start with the setup for Shattered Grid.
Yeah.
We'll be getting right into Shattered Grid pretty soon, and I really don't like the way it's set up with this, because it's just out of nowhere and has nothing to do with the story you just read. Like, the previous page is Kimberly saying, so Zach, it looks like you're maybe going to be dating soon, because there's this girl, we didn't talk about this, but there's this girl that has a crush on Zach that's been writing him notes. And she goes, and after everything that happens with Matt, and of course Matt is like super traumatized at the end of this, and she's like, you know, when she's talking as, you know, Rangers start dating, there's always a price to pay, and you'll understand that when you start dating Zach. And then the very next page is just Ranger Slayer.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the transition is supposed to be a thematic thing, where it's like, we'll know this later, because when you read this in sequence, like as it's coming out, you don't realize that this is actually her from another dimension. That this is Kimberly you're looking at, but you flip over and it's just Ranger Slayer talking to Finster 5. You're like, what is this Finster guy wearing alpha stuff? And then and then this like evil looking Pink Ranger with a scary bow. Maybe retroactively it's supposed to be like something when like there's a price to pay for falling in love, and Ranger Slayer had that, but like not like, did she and Draken, like the evil Tommy, have an actual romance? Because I can't remember.
I don't know, because I never read past here.
Okay, well, let's put a pin in this, and when we get there, we can come back and see if this thematically related to anything that happened on the previous page, because there's a transition that makes it seem like it's supposed to be related, but it really just reads like there's a big event coming, so we gotta shove this design in here, so you go, wow, that looks cool, and by the way, wow, that looks cool. Like, Ranger Slayer is one of my favorite designs of anything in Power Rangers now.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand what I was looking at when I first read this, but I was like, that's really neat. And then when you get into actual Ranger Slayer, it's like, she's awesome. So I can't wait to get to that stuff. I'm so excited about it because I love Ranger Slayer. But anyway, I just wanted to point out that we do set up Shattered Grid at the end, but we don't. With just that page, you don't know what we're talking about. You know what's going on.
There's like a page and a half.
Draken's not even invoked. Like, we don't know what any of that is. And it's so weird that the first glimpse of it we get is here, because this is the flashback book.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So does Draken just come to like every minute of Power Rangers? Because like.
No, because if memory serves, Draken doesn't actually go to this period of history. Ranger Slayer does. So Go-Go will deal with the Ranger Slayer stuff, and the main book will deal with Draken going to a bunch of different dimensions. Because remember, he's not a time traveler.
Yeah.
He's an interdimensional traveler. And so he's going to go pick up power coins from all these different universes, and he'll go to Megaforce, and he'll go to all these different things.
But they're not technically universes. Like, some of them are set in the same timeline.
Not according to this.
So it's
well, Yes, according to this, and no. So, and we'll get into all that when we get to Shattergrid. But I guess just real quick, I'll say that I guess when Draken goes to a different dimension that is of a series that is in canon with the rest of it, I think we have to just assume that it is another dimension that just also has that team.
Yeah.
I guess.
I think.
I don't know.
Because I think Time Force and Lightspeed Rescue are not in the same universe, but I'm pretty sure Time Force and Wild Force are in the same universe. So, like, there are things that's like, what?
Yeah. It will break our brain if we think about it too much, so we'll try not to do that.
Forever Red is basically just all in the same universe.
Well, when you get to Dino Thunder, you'll have that flashback episode that ropes it all in. Where
Yeah.
every single series counts. And then later when we get into Neo Saban, we'll break it up again. Where there'll be certain things that are in the same universe as Mighty Morphin and certain things that aren't because they can't be. Like Dino Charge.
Yeah.
Dino Charge just can't.
Yeah.
Like, the history of the dinosaurs is different. It just, I think Charge, right?
Yeah, it's not Charge. Well, yeah.
I think so, yeah.
It is. But, well, I mean, okay, but...
Yeah, Thunder, Charge, Fury, yeah, okay.
But you were saying... that Dino Thunder just wraps it all together?
Yeah.
Well, Wild Force does that. And then 2 seasons later, Dino Thunder does it. So basically, it adds another season.
Okay. All right. Senior 6 also had a $2 super chat that I missed. I prefer Tangas or King Mondo Troopers. King Mondo, that's just cogs, right?
Yeah.
King Mondo Troopers. You had the cogs and you had the Quadra Fighters.
Yes. What?
Those were those were like the ship-looking things.
Yeah.
Like flew around and shot.
They're from space.
No, but they're in Zeo.
They're in Zeo.
Yeah.
They're from Zeo, but they sound like they're from space.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, but they would kind of shoot out like a sonar blast that would blow up stuff.
Oh.
Hey, what else do you want to talk about with this?
Well, I'm basically done with the story. So I'm just gonna do the rest of my notes because I basically did a lot of it.
Yeah, we hit a lot of stuff, but yeah, go ahead.
I like how it does callbacks to earlier issues.
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole Trini thing and
earlier issues. Or
yeah,
in Mighty Morphin.
In Go-Go, where like later in.
Oh, you just mean continuity in general is good. Yeah. Like what?
And Mighty Morphin, but like the whole Trini thing, where you pointed out that she did that she was like, don't throw up.
Yeah.
And
okay.
I didn't notice that.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Jason's not being super articulate about this.
I don't.
So what Jason's talking about is stuff that on a first read you might not pick up on. She has a crush on Jason from the first issue.
Yeah.
And the first time I read it, I didn't actually pick up on that. Because I forgot that there had been talk about... There's a lot of characters, and everybody's got kind of a different side story going on that all are interconnected and converge and stuff, but, there's different subplots. And first time I read this, I didn't really get that until they made it really explicit that the two of them were kind of interested in each other. I think the way they get really awkward, by the way, I meant to say this earlier, and decide not to date, and they do the let's just be friends thing, is not real well handled.
No.
I just think that's real typical TV, and it feels... That was one of the few things that didn't feel... And some people will disagree, but that's one of the few things that, to me, didn't feel character-driven so much as Parott has decided they're not going to get together yet.
Yeah.
And so, I'm just imagining he's got an outline, and he's got like a, writer's room meeting, and he's decided this is not going to happen yet, so we need a scene that establishes they're not going to get together, and I'm not seeing the why of it enough. But anyway, I really like how early that's established and how subtle it is, where she tells, I think, Zach that she has a crush on somebody, and she's not saying who. And she goes, I'm afraid if I say anything to him, I'm just going to throw up. And then the way it's revealed to us that the crush is Jayson is she goes to pitch to Jayson, let's go train are Power Ranger stuff in the woods, and as she's walking up to him, she goes, "Don't throw up, don't throw up."
Yeah.
And that's some really sophisticated writing. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just had to explain what you're talking about.
Yes, because I didn't really know what I was talking about.
He was trying to he was trying to reiterate
once.
a conversation that we had over dinner. So anyway.
Yeah. I really okay. I mean, my favorite characters are Billy and Zach.
Mm-hmm.
And my least favorite characters are Jayson and Matt.
Zach's great. I like his "I'm friends with everybody" attitude.
Yeah.
He definitely had that in the show.
Yeah.
But I like how he's reinvented here, where there's a little bit more to it.
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of what the IDW comics did with Ghostbusters with Zedmore, where he's the same character, just more of it.
Yeah.
You know, just more present. It's clearer where his attitude comes from. But yeah, anyway.
And then
you already talked about Jayson and Matt.
Yep, and then my favorite quote is when Rita turns into the Megazord.
Yeah, these are the kinds of things you get to talk about in Power Ranger reviews that would never come up in anything else. When Rita becomes a Megazord, it's awesome.
When Rita takes over Putty Matt, and then Putty Matt turns into a Megazord.
Yeah.
It's still funny.
Yep.
She's Jayson always yells out "Power Sword" like normal, and he's like "Power Sword," and then Rita's like, "A little advice: don't announce every move before you make it." It's great because that's always what I've thought with really any show.
Yeah.
Especially Power Rangers.
And that kind of self-awareness, if we did too much of it, could get real problematic. But it's few and far enough between that I like that. Because you don't want it to just start making fun of the material to the point where it's like, we're too cool for school. Like, the thing that Parott is having to write is stupid and he knows it. Like, it is, and he knows it, but he's also got so much reverence for it and is finding ways again to make the goofy stuff feel less goofy because he's putting a foundation of some context behind it, right? But that kind of self-awareness in Power Rangers I've always liked if we don't do too much of it.
Yeah,
that reminds me of some stuff like Dino Thunder, where Tommy becomes the Black Ranger in the end of the episode. He's like, I've got to go out shopping because I don't have any black in my wardrobe.
Yeah.
And that's great. And RPM's explanations for like the explosions that happen behind Rangers when they fight monsters.
Yeah, imagine Rita being like, "Why is there an explosion behind you when you morph?"
Now, I guess the problem with that line is there is a reason that they have to announce that, which is just you have to call it.
Yeah. Well, but it's what you were saying when we were reviewing.
They should just turn the speaker off. There's no reason she had to hear them call the Power Sword.
Yeah. But it's like when we, I don't know if you said this in our reviews, but it's like when you were saying like in the X-Men show, like, why does Storm have to say what the weather does?
Yeah. No, I don't understand that.
Yeah.
But this makes a little more sense because you call your Zords, you call your weapons. It also gets into like downloading information into their heads so they can do things they wouldn't know how to do otherwise. Kind of begs the question as to why you have to train it all.
That whole
Did
thing.
you have that thought?
Yeah.
Where they talk about how Billy doesn't know anything about fighting, and then when he puts on, or when he morphs, I forget who says it, but somebody says he's like a killing machine or something. I forget what they say.
Yeah, training.
And I'm like, well, then why does anybody have to train?
I don't know. But then there's that whole thing with the Zords where it's like each Zord has a like random ability and you have to figure it out. I'm like,
why doesn't Zordon just tell them what they can do?
Yeah.
There might be a point in a fight where it would be really good to have a move list. Like a fighting game.
It's like Mortal Kombat where like my favorite character is Stryker.
Stryker!
And,
there are no answers that way, Wolverine.
And he never... there are no exits that way, Wolverine.
I hate playing with you when you play with Stryker, because you're just throwing grenades at me constantly.
Yes, so I was always... So with Mortal Kombat, I always was like, okay, there's a kick button, there's 2 kick buttons, 2 punch buttons, a block, and a run button. Well, I just used those. And then I like did something randomly and then end up pulling out a gun and I'm like, what?
Because you didn't understand move combinations.
Yeah, and then so I just looked it up and I was like, oh, I can do this, and then I have grenades and guns and an axe, and I'm like, yeah.
It's that thing where Zordon's just and it gets better and he becomes more of a character. But even here, I was kind of surprised that we're not giving him a little bit more character dimension, and he's still kind of just the exposition head, except for a couple of kind of more thoughtful, tender scenes, like when he says to Zack, there's flashes of what Zordon will be later, when he says to Zack, like, I might be betraying a confidence with Jayson telling you why I made him the leader, but you deserve to know why, and here it is.
Yeah.
Like, that's great, but that doesn't seem like the same guy who goes, got a lot of really cool toys, you figure out how to play with them.
Yeah.
That's what he's saying. And I don't know what he's like, maybe the idea is supposed to be that, like, as you mature and grow as a ranger and or as a person, you'll unlock new things that like, you have to... I might be... reading too much into this, I don't know, but maybe the idea is supposed to be that, like, those things won't present themselves, you won't even be able to use them, like, you have to level up as a person, like, as you become a better person, you unlock all these things your Zords can do, except he gives them an example. He does tell them about one, where he's like, for instance, Billy, you have horn chains.
And then Billy's like, what?
He's like, oh, cool, I have horn chains. And then he's like, everyone else, you'll have to figure it out as you go along. And I'm like, all right.
Speaking of fighting games, a way that the Rangers can always win in Zord fights is they just press X and Y at the same time, and then they can become live in news.
That ruins Power Rangers. Once you know that, it's like, you just press the buttons.
Yeah, because you never let me do that code again.
No, it's so fun playing against Ivan News,
Yeah.
the Super Nintendo Zord Fighter, in Power Rangers The Fighting Edition. Okay, so, another thing related to being all ambiguous with Zordon is... I don't know what Rita's talking about. You and I talked about this earlier. With regards to putting Zordon in a glass tube. She goes, so Zordon put me in a dumpster, and in turn, I put him forever in a glass tube. And I'm like, what is the order of events here?
Yeah.
Like, I'm fine with Rita being related to that and responsible for imprisoning Zordon somehow. I was writing a fan novel for a long time, and now that we've done a pretty good Zordon origin, I don't know if I'm ever going to finish it, because I like theirs, and it does some of the things I was doing. Mine's real different. Mine was related a lot to the movie, which they don't have the rights to, so, like, I might still have reason to finish it, because I have a whole Ivan Ooze thing in my book. But anyway, but it's, first of all, it's weird that they didn't seem to have, to be allowed to go back and do anything with Zordon, but occasionally there would just be a mention of stuff like that. I don't know if that was a thing that was in the show somewhere and I forgot about it, that Rita has anything to do with imprisoning Zordon. But what's the order of events here? How do you get, because she says in turn she imprisoned him in a glass tube. So you get put in a dumpster. You get shrunk and put in a dumpster, and then somehow you do that? I don't understand.
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
Yeah. And this is what I said when we were having dinner. It was like, I went on this whole thing where I was just watching this video of a bunch of Harry Potter memes, and there was this meme that was like, Voldemort is after something he didn't have last time, a nose, and it's like he didn't have a nose. Like,
that's really funny. Something else I wanted to talk about real briefly, Jason, is because of course this is Dan Mora, and we've gone on and gushed about how much we love this art. Just like with, this is my favorite page in Boom Power Rangers. I don't know if you know this. I'm obsessed with this page. It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
I want to take this as a pinup and blow it up to, like, you know, movie poster size and put it up somewhere.
Yeah.
I think it's glorious. But anyway, well, it's one of my favorites because now we have Zordon with a tiny tube on top of a mechanical body fighting Zed, and that's now the coolest thing that's ever happened in Power Rangers. But this is a close second as far as just artwork. I think it's amazing. So Mora, it has the same thing that the Higgins books do, where the character models are pretty manga inspired. Or manga, pardon me. Pretty manga, and I don't know why I said it like that. Pretty manga inspired.
Manga.
But I don't mind it in this. I think, and at this point, I don't too much in the other book either. It used to put me off a little bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, it starts from a Japanese thing in the first place. So I mean,
I
it's a
think
style
they
that
might
certainly
have
makes
been
sense.
doing that on purpose, but I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder. Because I've seen some of Mora's other stuff, and they don't all look like that. Like, Klaus doesn't look manga inspired at all.
No, it doesn't.
But anyway, I wanted
You should
to
review Klaus.
I have, but we can totally talk about it sometime if you want to. But I wanted to talk about the sheer amount of artwork from the board game, from Heroes of the Grid, that comes from these issues. Because Mora does most of the art, or at least quite a bit of the art for that game, and some of it's original artwork, and a lot of it comes from these books.
Yeah.
But all of the putty stuff, almost all of it, of the regular putty stuff, and maybe even the super putties, comes from these issues. The top two panels you're looking at right now are both cards in that game.
The top three.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, Zach kicking that play, that's also a card.
Yep.
One of them is flanking.
Yep.
Two of them are putty cards. And you're right, one is a kick that he has, I think.
Yeah.
One of them's flanking,
It's
and
like Mammoth Slam or something.
I think it is Mammoth Slam.
Yeah.
And then I think Freddie could tell you what the other one was. He mentioned it the other day. I can't remember now.
Yeah, it's I don't remember.
It's on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember either.
Go grab them now.
And then some of the Rita art. There's that panel. I don't know if I pulled it. There's that panel where she's doing this.
Yeah.
That's on one of the boxes, I think.
Yeah. There might be some what's the other version of Rita that I saw her that outfit is like in these comics.
Yes.
And
in the flashbacks.
Yeah.
The alternate sculpt.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, there's one more panel I wanted to show you guys if I could find it, and I don't know if I pulled it. But there's another page that's hilarious. Just if you're into the board game, and I know most of you guys listening probably won't know what we're talking about, but there's this great bit because I don't know if it actually inspired a mechanic in the game, Jason, but it sure feels like, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, there's this great bit where they fight a monster, and I think it's this monster, and they defeat it. Or is it the big putty at the end? I can't remember.
No, it is.
Is it this?
It's Flog.
Flog.
Or something. I don't know.
No, that's his name. It's Flog.
Oh,
and then he
just
keeps
says
saying
his
it with a
name.
million O's, like Flog.
No, he keeps saying it with a million G's.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so he goes. So Zordon, after they beat this monster, comes over comms, and he goes, now that the monster has been defeated, the putties have fled. And that's just a mechanic in the board game. If there are putties that you have to fight along with a monster, once you beat the monster, the putties run away.
Yeah.
And is that a thing that comes up in the show? Is like a specific thing that happens where like because usually if you beat a monster, there's not putties around.
Yeah.
I just thought it was really funny that precisely that dynamic shows up in this comic.
Yeah, that's funny.
Anyway, anything else you want to make sure I mention before we finish out here? We're already over an hour and a half, so.
No.
We found some criticisms here and there, and some stuff that I didn't agree that Jason's not caring for. But overall, this is what this book should have been from the beginning.
Yeah.
It's where it should have started from. Again, it's nice to have a thing that's not, Tommy-centric. And
Yeah.
it would have been nice to really flesh these characters out before we got to Tommy.
I do like Matt more than Tommy. I'm just, like, he's not the best, but he could have been Tommy, and I would have been fine with it.
I'll be interested to see what you think of him when we get to the more recent stuff.
Yeah.
We're about to get into we're about to get to territory that you've never read and that I've not reviewed, because this is all stuff I've talked about before, but not to this length, not to this degree. We're finally going to do Shattered Grid, and I want to say Shattered Grid begins in Volume 6, or do we have to get to 7 first?
Nope, it starts.
Because I want to say we've only reviewed up through 5 so far, right? With Mighty Morphin. Or did we do 6? I just can't. It's been a couple weeks. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think we started.
Wherever we're at, next time we wanted to go ahead and do Go together instead of trying to do one show where we talked about 2 trades of the different series. I know we did that with Pink, but this would be a little bit more difficult to do because the stories are so involved.
Yeah.
And that was a one-off. But anyway, next time, and it'll be a couple weeks because Jason and I are going to be out of town, and then we'll get back to weekly. But we've had 2 weeks in the last 2 months that we've been out of town for the entire week, so we're not going to be able to do this next time, or next week. But the week after we'll come back and we'll be doing whatever the next volume of Mighty Morphin is. I'm pretty sure it's 6, and then we'll also do the annuals. There's a trade that collects those, and we'll talk about all the little side stories and flashback stories that are in those.
Yeah.
Because some of those are actually kind of important and will inform stuff that happens down the road. There's a Gold RZ story that's pretty good that we're going to want to make sure and talk about. And
Yeah.
so, anyway, well, thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Hope you had a good time. And Jason, thanks for reading books and talking with me.
Thanks. I mean, you're welcome. Thanks for having me on mostly a weekly basis.
May the power make you more articulate.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'll try.
We'll see you again next time. No, you're fine. This is a lot of fun. And we'll see you again next time. I was Captain Logan.
And I was Jason.
And we were father.
And son.
Bye, folks.